Good morning, goddammit. Piss and vinegar day. I can't remember. Back day. Back and neck day. Yeah, good back day. And whatever. I don't know what to say about this workout. But what I do know what to say is, topic today is should you lose strength and muscle whilst cutting weight? And the answer is probably not. It's been nuanced, but unless you're like really getting super shredded up, like fucking dick skin shredded, like 8%, 10% body fat, or a body fat percentage that just doesn't make sense for you genetically without exogenous hormones to make up for the fact that you're not getting enough micronutrients to get your hormone profile healthy and enough fats to keep your hormones healthy, then no, you probably shouldn't really lose any strength and any muscle. But there is a bit nuanced. If you are getting super shredded or super lean relative to your genetics levels, if you are extremely advanced or you have a lot of weight to lose, like fucking 20, 30 kilos, then yeah, you really shouldn't be losing much strength or muscle at all. Some of the lifts that might lose a little bit of strength, in my experience with clients, has been the bench press and overhead press, and sometimes bicep curls. I don't know what it is. I know what it is on bench press and overhead press, though. It's blood pressure lowering as you lose weight. It's leverages. It is weight that moves weight. So when it comes to presses, you might lose a little bit, but only if you really fuck up your programming or you have horrible genetics or one of those components I just mentioned before. Realistically, when you're losing weight, if you train correctly, you will probably, at the very least, maintain your strength, if not very slowly, progressively overload. Or if you have good genetics, you're not getting that lean, or you're not that advanced, you might just get quite a bit stronger. In my case right now, I'm starting a weight cut, and I'm relatively advanced, and yet with good programming, I'm still progressively overloading. I'm still building muscle, because at the start of your cut, you can still build muscle. You've still got plenty of fat reserves. You're not that heavy into a deficit yet. I think a part of what allows muscle growth other than surplus is a good micronutrient and protein profile. And so if your protein there and micros are there because you are eating sufficient amount of calories still because you're not that deep into a cut, really, you might still build some muscle and strength. I've built plenty of muscle and strength on weight cuts before with high intensity training. I think about a year ago now, when I finished my last cut, that cut took 2 years. I lost 25 kilos, which typically means you're going to lose a lot of strength and size. But some areas went down. Bench press certainly went down, but that was more because I stopped doing bench press. But as far as overall raw strength that didn't require technical prowess and overall muscle, I might have lost a little bit of muscle because it was 25 kilos of weight over 2 years, which is way too slow. But either way, I definitely got a bit stronger in certain areas. I certainly built muscle in some areas. So to think that you can't, that's because of poor programming. Probably too much volume. People already, you shouldn't be doing that much volume. It's so fucking undeniable now that volume is not the driver of hypertrophy. Intensity is. Motor unit recruitment is. And volume is oxymoronic to that. But if you're in a deficit especially, fuck, man, you're fucked. Like, you're gonna fuck up if you're doing volume on a deficit. Like, people. This is the thing. I've heard this a lot of times. When you're in a deficit, you should do, light weights and high reps and shit, like less fatiguing and just like not toning per se. That would be really old school. But people have this idea of doing the same amount of volume and the same amount of shit when you're cutting weight, and that's fucking ridiculous. Most of these people are already doing too much volume, not enough intensity of effort, not enough motor unit recruitment. So even in bulks, they don't build that much muscle, but in their deficits, they're under this impression that you have to try and damage mitigate when you're cutting weight. That is fucking stupid. If you're thinking about damage mitigation when you're cutting weight to any real degree, then you're fucking your training up. That or you're fucking your nutrition up, or probably both. But the point is, if you cut right and you have your protein and micros and fats on point, and then you fill the rest with carbohydrates, and you understand that you're going to lose a bit of cytoplasmic volume, and you're going to lose a little bit of insulin, and a little bit of blood pressure, and a little bit of glycogen, which will allow for more force production in the gym, that will all very quickly rebound as soon as you start going into a surplus for a week or two. Once you understand that, anything that you lose during your cut is going to be very nominal outside of that, or at least should be. So really, if you're cutting weight, think about drastically dropping the volume and just keeping the intensity there. And basically, just find the minimal effective dose that still allows you to progressively overload and allows your connective tissues to feel good. And that way, when you do cut, you can probably still build muscle and build strength, because you have to understand that you just have to do a little bit less. But less doesn't mean that necessarily you won't gain muscle or strength. You just gain less. Like, obviously, you want maximum recoverable intensity, frequency, and then volume. That's, in my opinion, the most important order of looking at it. But when you're cutting, what is your maximal intensity, frequency, and volume threshold changes. So it might be halved, right? But half of that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't gain muscle. It just means that you can't gain as much muscle. And that's part of why the surplus is so important, so that you can do more intensity, more frequency, and train, and get more gains, maybe 50% more gains than when you're in a cut. But that isn't to say that at the very least in your cut, you should be maintaining your strength. So if you say, for example, I don't know, you do bench press, yeah? And you do 2 sets to failure for whatever reason. Let's say you do bench press for 2 sets of failure, and you do that twice a week in a bulk normally. Well, then when you go into a cut, you would bench press with 1 set to failure once a week, because that will be now how much you can probably recover from. This is just general ballpark, right? But that's what you would change. And by doing that change, by lowering it, you would think, oh, I'm going to get weaker and smaller. No, you're actually going to do the opposite of what you would have done if you kept the intensity and frequency and volume the same as the bulk. You're going to actually now keep gaining, potentially, at the very least, maintain your lifts. If you have a very advanced lift, or a lift like a bench press and overhead press where they have a really fucking hard time gaining without surplus, then at the very least, if you maintain it, then you're all good. Because if you're only cutting for 2-3 months, which is ideally the longest you should be cutting unless you're morbidly obese, then 2-3 months of maintaining your bench press is no fucking problem. And as soon as you go into a surplus, you get straight back up into it, right? But then other lifts like squats, deadlifts, back exercises, big compound movements that aren't push dominant, those lifts will go up if you're cutting, if you're doing everything right. It's just a simple fact. I've trained enough clients now in deficits. Most people, when you come to you as a PT, they come to you in a deficit because they're wanting to lose weight. It's very seldom do I get a client who wants to bulk up, which I love it when they do, because those clients have the most fun. Because bulking's sick. You build all this strength, you build all this muscle. But most people come to me a bit chubbier, right? So they want to lose a bit of weight, gain muscle at the same time. And they do. And obviously part of this is the fact that they are new to training. But even clients, I have a client who's been training for me 2.5 years, and he has a hard time losing weight. He's lost 25 kilos, but he still wants to lose more. And it's like, well, it's been 2.5 years. He can squat 130 kilos. He's probably in the intermediate stage for his, genetics. He's older, he's tall, all these different things. So 130 doesn't sound like a lot, but for someone like him, it is. So for all intents and purposes, he's intermediate. And thus, what I'm working on with him when it comes to weight cut would apply to most people. It's not, this guy's newbie gains is over, basically what I'm saying. And thus, clients where they've been training for a decent amount of time and they're intermediates now, they still can make gains in a deficit and a lot of different lifts. Some lifts, not so much. But even advanced people can. I'm more advanced. And in the legs, I'm more intermediate probably because they're just genetically so uninclined. But they're gaining still plenty. So at the very least, I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to say here is, at the very least, if you're cutting weight, you should be maintaining your strength at the very least. And if you're not, then your training's off, your nutrition's off. It's probably your training. You probably have to change your training somewhere. But it's really easy guidelines. Just lower the volume until you're still progressively overloading, and then, well, not the volume, lower the frequency until you're still progressively overloading, and then lower the volume a little bit, and then maybe change the intensity. You might start doing a rep in reserve on really heavy compound movements, whereas on, bicep curls and rear delts and stuff, you could probably still do plenty of reps to absolute failure. So, yeah, food for thought. And then if your training's on point, you figure out what you need to be doing in your training, then make sure that you are, prioritizing protein first and foremost, get that gram per pound of body weight. That is the most important thing. Then get your 0.25 to 0.30 grams of fat per pound of body weight, because fats is then secondly important. Then you fill the rest in with carbohydrates, and don't have any fluff and pump in your fucking diet. Don't have like ice cream and shit when you're cutting weight. You need to make every single micronutrient count. Your food should just be micronutrient dense, because part of what will make you lose muscle is having deficiencies in minerals and vitamins and all these different things that come from your diet. So make sure that you're getting every single ounce of your diet being very nutritious, and make sure it's protein rich, and that way you can still maintain plenty of muscle and strength. But anyway, long-winded rant cut short. Make sure you have your diet on point, and make sure that you're not doing too much. You should do less when you're cutting weight, and that way you can still gain strength, muscle, or at least maintain it. Anyway, peace out. Bye.